we have a really special group of people with us. I want to start by introducing one of my personal heroes from my young adult days, Bob Zellner. And Bob is the protagonist, the subject of a wonderful film that is going to be released very soon. And I have to tell you, this film is it's biography of him. It's called, well, no, I'm not going to even tell you what it's called yet, because I'm going to let our other guest, Barry Brown, who is the producer, director, and writer of the film, tell us the name. Barry, what is this wonderful film called?
The name is Son of the South.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, and I named that because Bob is, for me, a true son of the South. And to some extent, I think that, I wanted to give a slightly different sense of what that phrase could mean, because we all have in mind what that means, right? Yeah. And I mean, I grew up in the South, and Bob grew up in the South, and I want to open that up, and it could mean other things,
Many things, right?
And of course, folks,
many things.
The reason I had to have Barry say the title, I couldn't bring myself to, because I could not get that twang in there.
Oh, well, I don't have a twang anymore. I know
you want it authentic.
I don't really have a twang anymore, do I?
Nah.
No, you don't have twang.
It's just like Ken doesn't have a Maine accent.
Oh, right. I don't know. No Maine in me.
Bob, you say son of the South.
Son of the
It's like
South.
saying son of the South.
Yeah.
It's almost like some bitch.
Yeah, we couldn't get that title cleared, so we call it Son of the South.
No, okay, all right. Well, there was a movie called Song of the South.
Song of the South, yes, it certainly was. Now, just to round out, folks, for viewers, of course, I'm Ken Weene, as I said. With me today is my wonderful co-host, Monica Brinkman, and our dear friend, Celeste Duckworth. Okay, let's get to talking about this movie and this life. And Barry, when you made this film, okay, I know what hit me most, and I don't want to do too many spoilers here, but what was the moment in Bob's life, as you wrote about it, that really helped for you to understand, not that you didn't already understand, what segregation really was, the mindset that was segregation?
Well, as you say, Ken, I mean, I knew it. I grew up in it. I think that, you look at certain scenes in the film, such as that riot scene that happens in Montgomery, Alabama, where we shot, at the Greyhound bus depot, also where we shot, in which the character of Bob Zellner arrives there right in the midst of the riot and starts pulling freedom riders out of the riot, who were predominantly, they were African American, and just that there was a point in our history, not so very long ago, in which people just wanting the basic human rights could get beaten up with impunity, could be killed with impunity, really, and that very few people were standing up, white people were standing up to say, that's enough, no more. We gotta stop this, we gotta change it. And Bob being, one of the few white Southerners that really stood up for what's right, for really, I'd have to say for the values that supposedly this country was founded on.
We needed people like him, though, because others saw this and in their hearts they wanted to be him and do the same thing. It was like it gave them the right to do it. It's like,
Right.
okay, I'm allowed now. There's somebody else I can join with.
That's what I was saying about me. You know, there was one scene in the movie. It's about filling a water gun.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Actually,
that,
okay, I'm going to tell you the truth about that scene. That did not happen to Bob.
okay.
Okay.
To somebody
That happened to me. That happened to me. Okay.
Okay.
Creative license.
I mean, I used it for Bob. Sometimes you use things, and you take a a license to use them to make a bigger statement. You know, because for me that happened in Pensacola, Florida, when I was 4 years old, and it it's left. I mean, that's one of my earliest memories, because it was so shocking to me, and it was so scary to me. But yeah,
Barry had the temerity to go and fill his water gun at a black drinking fountain.
well, you went to a fountain that, I mean, you were 4 years old. You don't know. You
Water.
don't know.
You want water?
Yeah, you just
The,
want
the, the,
water
and the
for
thing
your
about
gun.
and the thing though, the thing that they did, the powers that be at that moment in time, was not only did you have white and black water fountains, but a lot of times they made the black fountain lower.
Mhm.
Basically adding insult to injury.
All right.
Yeah.
Really,
Mhm.
I mean, it is, it's beyond petty. It is, it's cruel. I mean, the whole system was cruel. So and and the black water fountain, really they call it the colored water fountain, was my
Back
height.
then, yeah.
My height at 4 years old. So I mean, if you're a full grown person, you really had to kind of bend over, just get a drink of water.
I have to tell you, I mean, I must have been kind of naive as a kid, but the first time I was in the South, and I was already a young teenager, and I saw a colored water fountain, and I expected colored water.
I just got where you're going. I never even thought.
It wouldn't have occurred to me. I mean,
red or blue or green.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. Oh my
and then, of course, when I realized that I'm horrified. So that particular little snippet, okay, it didn't happen to Bob, but it happened to you. But to me, it really just said so much. And then there was this explanation about working in the store. And
general store that Bob worked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I not too long ago had read Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, one of her autobiographies. And she's talking about the store system. And it's mind-blowing to me. How do you learn these rules?
Oh, you learn them because it's every day, right, Bob?
Oh yeah, I remember when I was at Huntington, we had some students from New Jersey, Tenafly, New Jersey, and and there was a laundrette close to the campus. So one of the guys got all his clothes together and took them over, and he had asked for a ride, so I had given him a ride, and he got out of the car and went with his big pile of clothes, and he came back in just a few minutes with the clothes. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, they only wash white clothes. It says white only. So he says, most of mine are not white. So
I hate to laugh at that. That's so horrible.
But people don't realize this wasn't that long ago
No.
that this was taking place.
No.
We're talking about our lives.
Yes.
In our lifetime. By the way, folks, if you want all of the because as Barry has pointed out, he has written a work. It is biographical. It is about Bob Zellner's life, but it also is somewhat fictionalized, as any good movie is. But if you'd like to read Bob's own words, he has got a book out. It's called The Wrong Side of Murder Creek, a white Southerner in the Freedom Movement. And, one of those things that, hey, if you want to know what it was, I assume that was one of your principal sources, Barry, as well as obviously talking to Bob.
Absolutely.
Well, as a matter of fact, Barry and I finished the first draft of the script long before the book was even finished writing. And when he was so interested, we were so interested in each other when we met in New York, and being from Alabama and being in film, that rarefied magic world of movies. Barry being so interested in my stories made me more determined to write them down, because Jim Foreman had always told us in SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, write it down, make a record. So the book was only published in 2008, and that was long after the script was pretty much in shape.
Mm-hmm. Well, I trust that you didn't steal any of Barry's memories to write your book.
No, but when I tell Barry's stories, I sometimes take liberties with his stories, the way he takes them with mine. And then he says, it didn't happen that way. You make me bigger than I was. So, and I think that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So it's like Harry Belafonte once said, he said, Bob, I tell stories about you all the time. And I said, yes, I've heard that. And he said, well, you tell people they're true, don't you? And I said, well, if they are true, I admit that they're true. But if they're not, I don't necessarily say they're true. But he would make up incredible stories, and he would claim that they had a kernel of truth there somewhere. But storytelling is probably the real way to tell a story, because if you told the story exactly the way it happened, it would be very boring and long, and you can't. How can you take a 350-page book and make a movie out of it? You only have to take a little portion. Sure. But the good thing is there's a lot of the book left, and so maybe there's more movies here.
Another movie. You just indicated something very fascinating to me. Before we started recording the show, folks, I had started asking Bob Zellner about some of these people. Celeste, you've been very quiet. I was wondering, Harry Belafonte, I'd love to have met him too, but who out of the people that Bob might know would you like to ask him a little snippet about? One of the people, maybe somebody who's a character in the film, just referenced?
Well, I just want to ask you probably what was one of the most impactful things that John Lewis might have said to you at that time, because definitely you had to really have a heart for the people to get involved, to go through everything you went through. I think the thing that I like about the movie is that it introduces to young Black people that there were other minorities that were part of the movement. We miss a lot of that in things that have happened in the United States and the world, that there were other, races involved that said this is not right. So I liked it for that. But I was wondering, it was great to see that you had this great relationship with Rosa Parks and John Lewis. But John Lewis is like one of my personal heroes. So I just want to know, what was maybe the most impactful thing he said to you?
Well, John Lewis and I had a very special relationship, and what he would always say is, John Robert Zellner. So I'm John Robert Zellner, and he's John Robert Lewis. And,
Okay.
he grew up a lot on his father's sharecropper farm, which they eventually bought in Troy, Alabama. And I did a lot of growing up on my Uncle Harvey's sharecropper farm, which was just east of Dothan, Alabama, and not more than 35 or 40 miles from where John was on his farm. So John, he was like me. One of the reasons I called the book "The Wrong Side of Murder Creek" is that I did a lot of growing up in East Bruton, Alabama, which is across the creek from Bruton, and Bruton was the richest town per capita in the United States when I was in high school, and so my whole life, people would look down at me and say, "Boy, you're on the wrong side of Murder Creek." And it would mean that
Because there's a creek that ran through Bruton, East Bruton.
yeah, the creek ran directly between East Bruton and Bruton. And if you were from East Bruton, you would never amount to anything. Your whole life was laid out for you just by the circumstances of your birth and the fact that you were poor. So that's what John always exemplified for a lot of Southerners, was that no matter how far back in the woods or on the wrong side of the creek or the tracks that you're born on, that's not going to shape you're not on a railroad track of destiny, that you can change your destiny. And if anybody ever did, John Lewis did. He just, in fact, I was very close to John Lewis and Julian Bond. And when they ran against each other in Atlanta, of all things, both of them SNCC people, I campaigned for John Lewis more than I did for Julian, because John represented the common people, the poor people, the ones that didn't speak quite so good. And when I first went to SNCC, I was, my speech was so poor that everybody was correcting me all the time. I didn't know how to say the N word or a whole lot of other words.
Oh, that's a funny piece in the book where they're teaching you how to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Barry did a tremendous job. I would give him a little kernel of a story, and then he would make it into something that was really.
Wait a second, that's the story you told me. That was the story.
The truth is coming out now.
Yeah. Now, what is that, my knee, and how do kids get bigger? They grow.
Yes.
Together.
And all kinds of Southerners, white Southerners, they thought they were being polite when they didn't say the N word all day, but they said that other word. And the woman said, "Let's get that right. Let's get that straight." And I thought that when he said Negro, that was an affectation. And when I was saying the word I was saying, I said, "I think that's what I'm saying." He said, "No, you're not even close." And he says, "What's that?" "That's your knee." So he said, "Say knee." "Okay, knee." "And what happens when you get big? You grow." He put them together. And I actually did have to practice that. And but it was a good example of how the movement outlawed that word. I mean, you cannot, and I do tours all the time with young people. And if I'm reading the book and quoting what they used to call me, I just have to say the N word. I can't do, and I understand that. And we've got a president that wants to go back, and a whole movement in this country want to go back and bring that N word back to practice. Open
It's an ex-president.
Ex-president.
Ex-president. Thank you.
His mind, but.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Yeah, I was so struck. Of course, the film is coming out this month, which is Black History Month.
It's coming out this week.
Yeah.
This week.
It's really exciting for
February.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us so we can help get the word out. But the other thing that struck me about it is that it is so timely, just as Bob, as you were indicating, and Black Lives Matter. I mean, we're talking now. I mean, just think about it. We are now talking, a Black person is killed by a cop, and people get out in the street and protest. When this was going on, it didn't even have to be a cop. I mean, just they deputize him after the fact if he killed somebody to make it legal.
Yeah.
And, and so in the approximately 60 years we're talking about, it isn't just that words have become unacceptable, but whole types of behavior. And we're moving in a direction of changing our society.
And that was one of the main points that SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and Dr. King had in our organizing. And that's why when they killed Herbert Lee in Mississippi, because he attempted to register to vote, not even to vote, they killed him for that. And he was killed by a member of the Mississippi State Legislature, E.H. Hurst. And Hurst never spent a moment in jail. And the witness who told the Justice Department that it was cold-blooded murder, he was murdered. So, and so what we had to do was we had to go to the very worst places, Mississippi. If somebody said you can't organize in X place, like Selma, they said you can't organize in Selma. And Bernard Lafayette said, well, that's where I'm going. And they said you can't register people to vote in Mississippi. We said that's where we're going. We had to take away the fear of lynching and the fear of castration. And we did for a while. And now they just, they've gone back to doing it in the open with the badge on, on camera, deliberately killing somebody in the street just to say, we're going back to this period. No, we're not. We're not going back.
I am so happy that you both got together to present this. One of the reasons is the youth today, they have no idea what it was like then.
They also have no idea that it happened in lifetime.
Yes.
To them, it's ancient history. To me, it's like yesterday.
But we want to show them so that this never takes place again to anybody.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to show that there are consequences, and there are consequences. So that's what we have to do now. We have to organize and make sure that those people, Proud Boys, Oath Takers, all of the militias and everything, and the Southern Poverty Law Center says they're just mushrooming all over, and they're emboldened now because it was so easy, they thought, to crash into the House and the Senate, that we may be up for, if this movie and all of the activity that's going on now doesn't head that off, we are going to be in worse shape than we ever were in the darkest days of slavery and the civil rights movement and Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Barry, do you have some good distribution plans for the movie?
Well, yeah, I mean, the film opens in, I think, about 140 cinemas this Friday, February 5th. And it also goes on to many platforms, video on demand platforms across the country. So I think, anybody who wants to see this movie, it's going to be able to see it starting February 5th on.
Mm-hmm. And
wonderful.
Just so you know, folks, we're recording this on the evening of February 2nd. Yeah, Groundhog Day. We're back. But we're recommending, Celeste, Monica, and I have all had the opportunity to watch Son of the South. We were sent a link by Barry's assistant, and we watched it. And okay, I'm going to ask you, Monica, out of 5 stars. How many stars are you giving Son of the South?
6.
6
so-
stars.
It was, no, it was the way it was done. There's no denying what took place. It was shocking when it should have been, and it showed you different people and how it all came together. This wasn't just what you saw on the news. It was actually what happened.
Yeah. Made people come alive. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Celeste, out of 5 stars.
Yeah, same as Monica. I mean, like I said, one of the things is that if you remember, nowadays on any of our talk shows and news, they don't really talk about what's going on. You get little snippets in the newspaper, but there was a time with Oprah and Phil Donahue that they did talk about some of the injustices that were going on in the country. And so this is why, I mean, for us at our nonprofit, we when I see kids, I'm always correcting them and I'm always talking to them, because a lot of Black children do not know their history, for one thing. We've been blessed in my family to do our history and to know where our family come from and some of the things they've done. So, I love the movie. I think my favorite part is when you're marching across the bridge and some people that know you come by and they're saying these words to you, and the little Black girl looks at you and say, you really are white. I thought that was a great scene, just right there, because really, I just really, the movie kept you interested from the beginning to the end. But knowing history like I do, there was just a lot more. I know there were a lot of white people that were involved in the movement, that families just let them go and told them you're not welcome. I know there was some that were threatened, like you and with your life, because you're you're helping the movement. So it really just made it even more heartfelt that you would take on that danger to help another race of people. So I'm hoping to share it as much as I can during Black History Month. Yeah.
Oh, good. Share it.
Oh, yeah, definitely want to share it and give my comments and whatnot. That's what I do on Facebook. I correct history.
And she's very good at it.
Yeah, well, one thing I've always had to talk to people about is when they see my name, Zellner, and the unlikely things that I was involved in, they would say, why did you come south to help the Black people?
Mm-hmm.
And I would always have to correct them that I didn't come south. I was already south. And that Daddy had been an organizer for the Ku Klux Klan, and my granddaddy was still an activist and very mean. And that there weren't, Daddy was a Methodist preacher, and there weren't very many Jews in the Ku Klux Klan, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the Methodist Church.
One of the things I was concerned about, and I'm sure Barry was, and Spike, about this movie, is that a lot of the movies with civil rights themes early on, they were movies about the white hero. And when I first saw Mississippi Burning, and they made the FBI the heroes of the civil rights movement, which was diametrically opposed to what the FBI was doing at that time.
Exactly.
We were worried about that people would think, if you make a movie about a white civil rights worker, how does it keep from being a white savior movie, which we didn't want to make. And I think Barry did an extremely good job.
Yes.
I didn't change the movement changed me.
It comes across
That's
really
exactly what happened. Yes.
well.
It came across.
A couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to do a show with a playwright from Boston, Patrick Gabbridge. And Patrick had written a wonderful book about Samuel Smalls. the heroic figure of the Civil War, black figure. And at the time, I said, I was thinking back to a book that I had read that was required reading in middle school in Massachusetts, where I was going to school, called Johnny Tremaine. And it was about the Revolutionary War. And I said, I thought that Patrick's book should be required reading in middle schools everywhere, because it taught a great deal, not only of what the Civil War was about and what the people were, but also that there could be a black hero and that it matters. Well, I'm going to say something different this time. I haven't read Bob Zellner's book. I'm probably going to, but I don't think it's for middle school. But what I do think is that I would like to see Son of the South, which of course I'm pronouncing very badly. I would like to see Son of the South shown in middle and high schools. I think fourth grade on up, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. 8 years, eight years and older. Yeah.
And I was wondering, Barry, is there any effort being made to work it into curricula and get teachers to use it and get schools to use it?
Well, it hasn't happened yet. I mean, our effort so far was really based upon getting the film finished and then getting the film distributed. So,
Right.
But I think that will come. That will come. That will definitely come.
I sure hope so.
I do too.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Barry, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in doing this movie? Because I'm pretty sure with a lot of, highs and lows emotionally, just by the story itself, and then doing the movie, what were probably the biggest challenge that you had to get past?
Well, I think the biggest challenge was, just the difficulty in getting a film like this made. For years after I finished the script, it was there were so many people. In terms of taking the script to Hollywood and getting it made, that just became an impossibility. The wisdom in Hollywood was that nobody wanted to see a film about the civil rights movement. And so we had to raise the money eventually out of the first money came from private investors in Alabama. Stan Erdrich, who's from Birmingham and one of the producers, was just instrumental in getting that done. And he went back to Birmingham. He lives in New York like me. And he went back to Birmingham. We went together and we would hold events, and then Stan would just keep going and convincing people down there that this was the kind of thing that they had to get behind. And actually, I find that very satisfying that so much of the money to get this movie made came out of Alabama. Because always the first money is the hardest money, but then just trying to make the movie I really wanted to make at the quality I wanted to make. And, we had $5 million basically. And I basically wanted to make a $20 million film.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think it stands up against anything. I don't think you see this movie and say, well, this looks like a pretty cheap movie. It doesn't.
Not at all.
And you look at the riot scene, which in fact I wanted to watch a lot of riot scenes, so I watched a lot of them, and I was very unimpressed with the riot scenes that had been done in movies that had a whole lot more money than Son of the South was going to have. So I set about to say, okay, how are we going to do this riot scene and really deliver the scene that Bob had always told me about, how to deliver that and do it on a level that it doesn't feel like, well, these people don't have any money. they don't have any extras and they don't have any money. And we had a day and a half to shoot that riot scene, and that should have been 4 or 5 days to shoot.
Easily.
And but we had to really plan it out. And my son Nick Brown was the second unit director. So when I was shooting in one part in this very tight location, he was shooting in another part, getting great stuff. And for weekends before that we shot that scene, we would work with the stunt coordinator. We would work with John Rosario, the cinematographer, and really figure out how are we going to do this. So on the day of, we could just move through, and we moved through really fast. I think Bob, you showed up while we were shooting that scene, didn't you?
Oh yeah. We were watching from behind the tree several times, and it was incredible, especially the way the scene gets cut, because the production values, and I'm not an expert on movies, but I think the production values on Son of the South are extremely high. It's because you worked on it so hard. I mean, the shots that are through the bus with the because all of the descriptions that everybody has ever given of this riot or this massacre, they came right to the scene, because almost everybody that's ever talked about how the mob materialized like magic, just boom, and you did that shooting through the old bus, and here comes this raging mob, and then with all the details, the fact that the Klan women had put bricks in their purses and reinforced the handles so they could swing their purse, and to the ordinary bystander, it just looked like some woman had gotten so mad she was hitting somebody with their purse. No, she was hitting somebody full blast with a brick that could hit in hitting you in the head. So,
and I cast my yoga teacher in that part. She's from Montgomery, like me, from Montgomery, and she is a great yoga teacher. But I asked MJ, will you do this part? She said, yeah, I'll do it. She was great.
So, folks, in case you were wondering if there's any action in this movie, now you got the answer. There's lots of action, and it's powerful action, and it's meaningful action. And just to remind you, we're talking about Son of the South, which was written, directed, produced by one of our great guests today, Barry Alexander Brown. And it's about the life story of our other wonderful guest today. Now I know his first name is actually John Bob Zellner. Two guys from Alabama who are trying to make us think about and talk about and learn about a part of American history, the truth of the civil rights movement, what was going on during those years, and why it really should matter to all of us. And gentlemen, I want to thank you on behalf of Monica, Celeste, and myself for joining us for the show. And I want to mention that we're going to be adding a little preview of the movie, just in case we haven't convinced you yet to watch it. Monica's going to tag on a preview, but get to it. I know, folks, it's kind of a little scary going to movie theaters now. Almost scary. I mean, hey, we've been talking about the terror of what was being imposed in places during those years. So I guess dealing with COVID seems a little less serious right now. But also, you'll be able to get it on the streaming platforms. Yeah. And Son of the South. Watch for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing this bit of history with us. And it's been a real treat for me. I know that. I'll never forget it.
Right. Thank you very much. It's great to be part of history just by talking to you, and also Barry, just knowing that you put this project into play. So great. Thank you for inviting me and having me here, Ken and Monica.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Anytime. They're always welcome. Okay.
We're always-
Tomorrow then.
Check this out. It's worth it, and share it with other people.
Yes.
So thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
This is June 22nd, 1961. Can you recall your earliest memories of race?
You grab that bat and you do what's right.
I don't think so.
This is in your blood. All right, this is where you belong, boy.
Montgomery's a pretty town.
With a pretty ugly side to it.
Get out of here.
I was in a riot and I walked right through it, unharmed.
What is the point you're trying to make?
Maybe I could go around college campuses talking to students about the Negro cause.
The hell do you think you're doing?
Son, I'm starting to wonder if you are aware of the poison in the apple that you have bitten into.
You know this movement is about more than just voting rights. We're trying to change the world.
You want to jeopardize your whole life for some grand principle?
Isn't that what they're doing?
Some of these old boys around here, they really mean to do you some harm.
Oh, I bet you ain't happy you came to Montgomery now, boy.
So what's gonna happen next?
Let's start a revolution.
You continue on.
Let's start a revolution now. Won't break and we won't back down.
But we're still breathing.
This feeling too strong. We've been down for too long. What you supposed to do when everybody wants you gone?
You gotta draw the line somewhere.
You stop right now.
They're gonna kill him.
This is for the memory. All my people next to me. They could take our lives, but they'll never take a legacy.
There's gonna come a time when something really bad happens, and you're gonna have to decide which side you're on. Not choosing is a choice.
Let's start a revolution. Let's start a revolution. Let's start a revolution now.
We hold the moral high ground.
Ain't you supposed to be nonviolent now?
I'm having a real big problem with that right now.
Back down.